There comes a morning, quiet, unfamiliar, strangely dense, when you wake not into the world, but into a kind of weight, a weight that does not come from your body, but seems to come from life itself. A morning where the sunlight feels indifferent, the air feels distant, and even the thought of rising feels like trying to lift an ocean. And you wonder, what is wrong with me today? But listen closely. There is a secret about these mornings, a truth whispered so softly that most people ignore it their entire lives. Life speaks loudest in the moments you cannot move. You see, there is a peculiar stillness that descends before great changes, a quiet rebellion that happens not outside you, but within you. And although the world will tell you, push through, discipline yourself, get up, there is something far older than discipline living inside you, something far wiser, gently refusing to obey. It feels like tiredness, it feels like heaviness, but it is neither. It is your soul putting its hand on your shoulder and saying, no, not this morning, not like this. Now, I am not speaking of the fatigue that comes after long nights or stressful days. No, I am speaking of that mysterious heaviness you cannot explain, that strange silence that settles in your bones, that moment where you feel frozen, not because you are weak, but because something inside you refuses to move one more inch toward a life that no longer feels true. And perhaps you have mistaken this for laziness. Perhaps you have scolded yourself for lacking strength or motivation. Perhaps you have whispered, why can't I get up? Why can't I do what everyone else seems to do so easily? But let us consider a radical possibility. What if the heaviness is not an enemy, but a guide? What if the very moment you think life is abandoning you is actually the moment life is redirecting you? You see, human beings have become experts in ignoring themselves. We have learned to silence every subtle feeling, every quiet intuition, every inner tremor that tries to whisper, something is not right. And when the soul gets tired of being ignored, it does not shout, it does not force, it simply withdraws. It takes away the one thing you cannot fake, your energy. And when energy disappears, movement disappears with it. And suddenly, you cannot rise, you cannot push, you cannot pretend. It is in these moments, these strange, motionless dawns, that life is saying, stop, you are not listening. You see, exhaustion is honest. It tells the truth, long before your mind is willing to hear it. The body grows heavy because the soul refuses to keep walking the same false direction. And this is the great secret of tiredness. Tiredness is the soul's way of turning your life back toward itself. No one teaches you this. Schools will not tell you. Workplaces cannot afford to tell you. Even your friends and family, though well-meaning, will often misunderstand. They might say, you need motivation, you need discipline, you need to try harder. But what if trying harder is the very thing breaking you? What if the real courage is not in forcing yourself to rise, but in learning to listen to the heaviness that wants you to pause? Because that heaviness, my friend, is not a collapse. It is a conversation, a threshold, a beginning disguised as an ending. It is life tapping you on the shoulder and saying, you have carried something for too long. You have ignored something essential. You have drifted too far from your own rhythm. And so before we go any further, ask yourself a gentle question, one that may change everything. What if my inability to rise is the first honest moment I've had in a very long time? If you can sit with that question without shame, without judgment, without rushing to fix yourself, you will begin to hear the deeper voice beneath the tiredness, a voice older than your name, older than your habits, older than your obligations. A voice that says, this stillness is not your end. It is the beginning of being true to yourself. Have you ever noticed that life rarely shouts? It almost never grabs you by the collar and demands, stop, you're going the wrong way. No, life is far more subtle than that. Life prefers whispers, interruptions, small collapses, and curious pauses. Sometimes the greatest message you will ever receive comes disguised as the sudden disappearance of your energy. And you may think, but I slept, I rested, I did everything right, so why do I feel like there is no fuel left in me? But that is precisely the point. Physical tiredness has reasons, but this is something far stranger. This is the soul quietly withdrawing its cooperation. You see, the mind can insist, command, force, push, but the soul does not argue. When something is no longer aligned with your deeper nature, the soul simply steps back, and without the soul's support, the body refuses to move. It's like having a brilliant engine with no spark. Everything is there except the life behind it. And so you sit there wondering, what's wrong with me? But nothing is wrong. Something is speaking. The soul does not abandon you, I once said to a friend. It merely refuses to power what is not yours anymore. And that is exactly what happens. The energy you relied on, the push, the fire, the momentum, begins to fade. Not because you are weak, not because you lack discipline, but because you have wandered too far from the truth of yourself. You see, energy is not manufactured by willpower. Energy is the natural byproduct of alignment. When you do what is true for you, even difficult tasks feel light. But when you walk a path that contradicts your inner nature, even the simplest movement feels impossible. Consider how rivers flow effortlessly when following their natural course. But when forced uphill, they become stagnant. The river hasn't failed, its direction simply opposes its nature. And humans are no different. When the direction of your life no longer matches the direction of your soul, your energy does not rise to meet the day. It falls away. And the falling away is not failure, it is redirection. Sometimes the soul withdraws energy because a relationship is draining your spirit, a job is contradicting your values, a lifestyle is suffocating your curiosity, a dream you once chased no longer belongs to you, or you have been living by expectations that were never your own. And rather than shouting, the soul does something far more compassionate. It simply stops giving you the strength to continue. Not this way, it whispers, not anymore. It is an act of rebellion, but a gentle rebellion, the kind that protects you from betraying yourself. And this is where most people misunderstand their exhaustion. They believe they have failed themselves, when in truth they have finally become honest. Have you noticed how your body becomes heavy the moment you consider doing something that doesn't feel right? How your breath shortens when you imagine returning to a place that drains you? How your chest tightens when you think of repeating a version of yourself that you've outgrown? That heaviness is the soul withdrawing its energy from a direction that no longer carries meaning. The soul says, in its quiet way, I will not help you climb a ladder that leans against the wrong wall. And so the energy leaves, the motivation disappears, the desire dissolves, not because you are broken, but because you are being rerouted. The world teaches you to push harder. The soul teaches you to listen deeper. The world says, force it. The soul says, feel it. The world says, don't be weak. The soul says, don't be untrue. And perhaps this is why your energy has fallen silent. Not to punish you, not to stop your life, but to stop you from living someone else's life. Your tiredness is the compass pointing you home. Your emptiness is the space where new truth can finally enter. Your stillness is not a collapse, it is a correction. And so I invite you to consider this thought, gentle and profound. What disappears was never meant to stay. What stays was never meant to disappear. If your energy has left you, perhaps it is guiding you toward a life that finally belongs to you. There is an ancient rhythm woven into the fabric of existence. A rhythm so natural, so effortless, that every part of the universe follows it without resistance. Every part except the human being. Watch the tide for a moment. It advances, retreats, advances, retreats, a cosmic breath carved into the ocean. And none of those waves ever feel guilty for falling back. Look at the moon. It waxes, it wanes. It does not shine at full brightness every night. Nor does it apologize for dimming. Even the heart, the very drum of your life, beats in pulses of motion and pause. If it tried to beat continuously without rest, it would collapse in seconds. Nature has always known this simple truth. Nothing alive moves endlessly. Life is movement and stillness woven together. Yet human beings, strange creatures that we are, try to rise every day as though we were machines built to run without pause. We chase efficiency, productivity, perpetual momentum, and when life suddenly pulls the plug on our energy, we panic. We assume something is wrong with us. But think about this. If every living thing follows a cycle of rest and return, why should you be the only exception? You see, there comes a moment when life gently places you back into the rhythm you abandoned, a moment when your body slows, your thoughts soften, and your energy quietly drains, not to punish you, but to reintroduce you to the natural order of things. This is why, when you suddenly can't rise, it feels strange, unnatural, wrong, but in truth you are experiencing something profoundly right. You are remembering the rhythm of existence, and perhaps this is the real meaning of tiredness, not a failure of strength, but a reminder that you have been moving without harmony, that you have been trying to bloom without winter, trying to exhale without inhaling first. Let me tell you something simple yet radical. Stillness is not the opposite of life. Stillness is where life gathers its strength. Look at a tree. It stands motionless in winter, barren, quiet, stripped of all decoration. Yet inside that silence, the tree is not dead. It is preparing, healing, restoring. Everything visible has paused, so everything invisible can grow. If a tree attempted to bloom throughout winter, it would die. If you attempt to bloom without pausing, you will break. Humans forget this because society rewards only one part of the cycle, the doing, the moving, the producing. But no one teaches the art of retreat. No one praises the wisdom of stopping. And so when life finally forces you into stillness, you think you are falling apart, when in truth you are being restored. Your inability to rise is often the soul placing you back into the season you skipped, a season of regrouping, a season of inner gathering, a season where the world quiets so your deeper knowing can speak again. You see, there is a point where the mind becomes so loud that the soul must intervene, and it intervenes not by shouting, but by slowing you down. Your tiredness is not an interruption of life. Your tiredness is life. Life saying, you have marched too far away from yourself. Come back, sit down, breathe, remember. Rest, my friend, is not a weakness. Rest is a return, a homecoming to your own being. Just consider how the bow must be pulled backward before the arrow can fly. Consider how silence must fall before music can begin. Consider how dark earth must hold the seed before anything can bloom. Every return begins with a pause. And so when you lie there unable to rise, you may think you are stuck. But something ancient within you is actually preparing for your renewal. You are entering a kind of inner winter, a place where your roots grow deeper, where the noise fades, and where truth can gather itself again. The modern world would call this procrastination, laziness, inefficiency. But the soul calls it alignment, timing, preparation. Sometimes life slows you down because the next movement requires more of you, more clarity, more honesty, more presence than you currently have. And the only place to gain those things is in the quiet. So when you feel yourself collapsing into stillness, try not to resist it. Instead, hear the whisper beneath the fatigue. You are not stopping life. You are allowing life to catch up to you. And when it does, when life gathers its strength in you again, movement returns naturally, effortlessly, like spring after winter, like breath after breath. But for now, stillness is your teacher. Stillness is your medicine. Stillness is your return. There is a kind of tiredness that does not come from the muscles, nor from the lack of sleep, nor from any physical strain. It is a tiredness that seems to radiate from a place far beneath the surface, a heaviness you cannot quite name, yet cannot escape. Have you ever felt that? A kind of invisible weight pressing on your chest, slowing your steps, dimming your inner fire, even though nothing should be wrong. But something is wrong. Something you've carried for so long that you've forgotten it, even has a weight. You see, every human being carries two selves. The self the world sees, the one who performs, pleases, smiles, agrees, and the self the soul knows, the honest one, the quiet one, the one that aches to be real, and the strange heaviness you feel often comes from living too long as the first, while ignoring the second. Let's be honest, most people live carrying expectations that were never theirs, roles they never chose, fears they inherited, stories someone else wrote for them. And each of these invisible burdens wraps itself around the spirit, like layers of wet cloth, not enough to drown you immediately, but enough to drain you slowly. You carry the pressure to be reliable. You carry the fear of disappointing others. You carry the persona you worked so hard to build. You carry the unresolved memories you never allowed yourself to mourn. You carry the guilt of moments you didn't deserve guilt for. You carry the past versions of yourself that you've outgrown but still perform. No wonder you're tired. The soul grows weary long before the body collapses. I once said that people don't suffer because life is hard. They suffer because they drag their past like a shadow that never learned to lie down. And that is exactly what happens when the unseen self becomes too heavy. Your tiredness becomes a collapse of pretense, a moment where the inner world refuses to keep carrying what is false. The body says, I cannot lift this anymore. The soul says, I will not lift this anymore. And suddenly you find yourself unable to rise, not out of weakness, but out of truth, because somewhere inside you, something essential has reached its limit. You see, human beings are incredibly good at adding more to their lives, more responsibilities, more expectations, more noise. But they are terrible at letting things go. We accumulate emotional clutter the way a ship gathers barnacles, slowly, subtly, invisibly, until one day the ship feels impossibly heavy. And the weight doesn't come from who you are, it comes from who you no longer are. All the versions of you that stayed out of politeness, all the dreams that no longer fit, all the identities that once protected you but now suffocate you, all the emotions you swallowed because there was no safe place to let them out. The soul can only carry so much before it says enough. And your inability to rise is not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough beginning in the only way the soul knows how, by refusing to carry the burden any further. Ask yourself something gentle, something courageous. What have I been holding that no longer belongs to me? You might be surprised by the answer. Perhaps it is a role that once gave you meaning but now drains you. Perhaps it is a relationship where you shrink yourself to keep the peace. Perhaps it is a standard of perfection that has never made you happy. Perhaps it is the image of a life you thought you wanted before you truly knew yourself. Whatever it is, that hidden weight is what your soul is refusing to lift now. And the refusal is sacred, because the exhaustion you feel is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that something deeper in you is trying to emerge. Imagine a snake trying to move without shedding its old skin. It would suffocate under the weight of what is no longer alive. Your heaviness is the same. It is the signal that the old self cannot come with you where you are going next. And so life forces you into stillness, not as punishment, but as liberation. You cannot rise, life says, because you cannot rise as the person you were pretending to be. This heaviness you feel is not the end of you, it is the release of everything that is not truly you. In this pause, the unseen self begins to unravel, and the soul finally begins to breathe. There comes a certain moment in every person's life when the path beneath their feet begins to feel strangely foreign. The steps become heavier, the air becomes thicker, and each movement feels like walking upstream through a river that keeps insisting, not this way. You may think you're simply tired, you may think you're unmotivated, you may think you're failing at being strong, but what you are actually experiencing is something far more intelligent, far more instinctive than the mind ever gives you credit for. You are feeling the quiet rebellion of the soul. For you see, the soul is not obedient in the way the mind is. The mind can be trained to follow rules, conditioned by society, molded by expectations, but the soul is wild. The soul does not negotiate, does not pretend, does not lie. The soul will walk with you only as long as the direction is true. And the moment your steps begin to wander away from your deeper nature, even if you don't consciously notice it, the soul begins to withdraw, not dramatically, not violently, just quietly, as if dimming the lights in a room you no longer belong in. That heaviness you feel when you try to get up, that sudden loss of energy at the exact moment you think about returning to a certain place, a certain task, or a certain identity, that is the soul saying, I'm not going there, and if you try to drag me, I will stop moving entirely. This is why the body becomes heavy. This is why the mind becomes foggy. This is why your motivation dissolves the moment you force yourself in the wrong direction. It is not failure, it is refusal, a sacred instinctive refusal to betray yourself. You see, you can deceive your mind for years. You can convince yourself that a job is good enough, that a relationship is fine, that a lifestyle is normal, that a dream is practical. You can rationalize away every discomfort with the sharp logic of adulthood. But the soul is not fooled by practicality. The soul knows only truth. And when you wander too far from that truth, the soul does not argue, it rebels, not with noise, but with silence. not with force but with stillness, not with anger but with absence. The soul's rebellion is gentle, I once said to a student, but it is absolute. This rebellion shows up in the smallest of ways: the sudden dread you feel on Sunday night, the confusion that appears out of nowhere, the desire to escape without knowing where, the strange longing you cannot put into words, the way every step forward feels like sinking into mud. These are not coincidences. These are the warning signs of a life misaligned. When you are moving in the wrong direction, your soul becomes the resistance. When you are moving in the right direction, your soul becomes the wind. Think back to the moments when you felt truly alive, even if only for a second. What did they have in common? A sense of ease, a sense of flow, a sense of being carried rather than pushed. That is what happens when the soul says yes. But when the soul says no, everything becomes heavy. Imagine trying to sail with your anchor still buried in the sand. That is what it feels like to continue on a path your deeper self has already abandoned. And so your tiredness becomes a form of protection. It keeps you from running toward a future that does not belong to you. It keeps you from forcing yourself into shapes that no longer fit. It keeps you from repeating patterns that have already fulfilled their purpose. It keeps you from pretending you are satisfied when you are quietly starving for meaning. The world will tell you to push harder, but life itself is refusing to let you push. The world will say, don't be weak, but the soul whispers, do not be false. And if you listen closely, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the frustration, beneath the guilt, you will hear a message: you have outgrown this path. Let it go. Your heaviness is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that you are finally being guided, because the soul does not sabotage you. The soul saves you. It stops you from continuing toward a life that was never meant to be yours. It slows you down so that truth can catch up. It empties you so the right direction has space to enter. This rebellion is not your enemy. It is your compass. The moment you honor it, the heaviness begins to lift, not all at once, but the way dawn slowly replaces the night. For now, let the rebellion speak. Listen to it, respect it, because it is not saying, stop living. It is saying, stop living what is not true. There comes a peculiar moment, often quiet, often unexpected, when life presses a gentle finger to your lips and says, be still. Not out of punishment, nor out of failure, but because something within you has gone unheard for far too long. And when you finally stop moving, when the rushing thoughts settle like dust in a sunbeam, something extraordinary happens. You begin to hear what movement once hid. You see, as long as you keep marching forward, repeating the familiar rhythms of your life, you remain wrapped in a kind of inner fog. The noise of constant activity becomes a shield, a way to avoid the deeper movements stirring beneath your awareness. But when you can no longer rise, when stillness is no longer a choice but a necessity, that shield falls away. The silence that surrounds you becomes a doorway, and through that doorway truth begins to return. Not with thunder, not with grand revelation, but with a quiet certainty, like a whisper beneath the breath of the world. There is something here you must see. In your stillness, the soul begins its work. It reveals the thoughts you pushed aside, the emotions you buried beneath routine, the longings you ignored out of caution or habit. These hidden parts of you rise gently, like lanterns floating to the surface of a dark lake. Every hidden truth has been waiting patiently for this very moment, the moment when you finally stop running. Because movement, though necessary and beautiful in its own time, can also become a way of escaping yourself, running and running, without ever questioning where you're going or why. But the soul waits for stillness. The soul speaks in silence. When you stop, I once told a friend, life can finally catch up to you. In this forced pause, this moment where your energy retreats, something inside you begins to rearrange itself. Old illusions crumble. Unseen wounds rise for healing. Forgotten desires reveal their shape. The inner world shifts its tides, and suddenly you notice things you never noticed before. Perhaps a feeling that has lived inside you for years finally takes form. Perhaps a quiet dream long buried under duty begins to stir. Perhaps the version of yourself you pretend to be starts to fall away. Stillness is the great revealer. When life refuses to let you move, it is because movement has been hiding something essential, something that must be seen before you can take a single meaningful step forward. And so you lie there, caught between what you were and what you are becoming. The old self loosens its grip. The new self is not yet born. You stand in the inner twilight, a place where everything feels unfamiliar, yet strangely honest. This twilight is sacred. Many people fear it. They rush to fill the silence with noise, to busy the mind with distractions, to avoid the uncomfortable truth that rises when all motion stops. But you, in this moment, have been chosen to pause. Not to imprison you, but to liberate you, because in your stillness, you begin to see which desires were genuine and which were borrowed, which paths were meaningful and which were escapes, which fears were warnings and which were illusions, which parts of you were alive and which were leftover performances. Stillness reveals the architecture of your inner world. It shows you what survives when all effort is stripped away. And what survives is always the truth. Think of a pool of water constantly disturbed by wind and motion. You can never see your reflection clearly until the surface becomes calm. Only in stillness does the water turn to glass. The same is true of you. In the quiet where you cannot rise, where no step can be forced, the surface of your being becomes still enough for you to finally meet yourself without distortion. And what a beautiful, humbling encounter that is, to look inward and see the truth of your desires, your fears, your longing, your authenticity. Stillness reveals not only what you are, but what you are not. It dissolves the clouds that movement once kept swirling. It removes the masks you forgot you were wearing. It uncovers the path you were meant to walk long before the world convinced you otherwise. When movement hides the truth, the soul says, stillness will bring it back. This exhaustion you feel, this pause you did not choose, is not a void, it is a passage. And on the other side of this quiet, your life will look different. Not because the world has changed, but because you will have seen what you could not see before. In this silence, you are not losing yourself. You are finding the self that movement buried. You may notice it first as a quiet shift inside you, a subtle loosening, as though the inner knots that held you still have begun to unwind. Not a dramatic moment, not an explosion of clarity, but a soft turning of the inner tide. Almost like a bird stretching its wings after a long night, you begin to feel the faint impulse of movement again, not forced, not demanded, simply natural. This is how life returns to you, not with commands, but with invitations, not with pressure, but with possibility. You see, your stillness was never a pause in your life story. It was part of the story, a chapter written in a quieter ink, but no less important than the ones filled with noise and motion. Something within you has been healing, reorganizing, remembering, and now that inner work begins to reveal its effect. It shows up in unexpected ways, a thought that feels a shade clearer than yesterday, a feeling of space in a part of the heart that once felt crowded, a tiny spark of curiosity about something you thought you'd lost interest in, a gentle awareness that the heaviness no longer holds you the way it once did. This is not a return to your old self. It is the emergence of a deeper self. The soul does not rush, I said once. It arrives in its own time, and that is what you are experiencing now, arrival. Not the forced rising the world demands, but the effortless rising that truth creates. You are beginning to stand, not because you should, but because your inner being has aligned itself again. Because the direction you're turning toward is no longer a betrayal of your nature. Because the weight you carried has dissolved enough for movement to feel possible, even welcome. Think of a seed beneath the earth. For weeks, perhaps months, nothing appears on the surface, but underneath, life is building itself, forming roots, preparing a future. When the moment is right, the seed does not burst upward and struggle. It simply grows because it cannot do anything else. You are that seed. Your stillness was your rooting. Your new movement is your unfolding. And the beauty of this moment lies in its authenticity. You are not rising out of guilt. You are not rising out of panic. You are not rising to satisfy anyone's expectations. You rise because life once again is flowing through you. It is an inner permission, not a command, a natural impulse, not a demand of the mind. Now, if you listen closely, you may hear the whisper at the center of your being. You are ready for the next step. And that step does not need to be large. It does not need to be heroic. It only needs to be honest. One truthful step is worth more than 1,000 steps taken in fear and pretense. You have learned something rare. That movement without alignment is exhaustion, and stillness without presence is avoidance. But stillness with presence becomes transformation. You have discovered that tiredness can be a doorway, not a defeat. That silence can be a teacher, not a void. That life pauses you not to break you, but to bring you home to yourself. And now the path ahead reveals itself, not sharply, but gently. Not with certainty, but with sincerity. You are no longer trying to force your way into the world. You are letting the world move through you. Strength is not in the pushing, the soul says, but in the allowing. And so as you rise again slowly, quietly, truthfully, you do so not as someone trying to become worthy, but as someone who finally understands they always were. You do not rise with the weight of who you were. You rise with the clarity of who you are becoming. Life is ready to move in you again, and you are ready to move with it. This is your return, not to your old life, but to your true rhythm, not to your old strength, but to a deeper, more sincere strength that grows from within. And when you take your next step, however small, however simple, you will feel the unmistakable truth. You are not rising by force. You are rising because you are aligned. You are rising because it is time.